Okay, check it out. My buddy asked me to make a YouTube video on how to make homemade flour tortillas. So I'm going to make a small batch. Can you see me? Excuse me. And it consists of 4 cups of all-purpose flour. I like to use gold medal. A heavy teaspoon of kosher salt. 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. I like Calumet. Apparently I can't find it anymore. I've got that Clabber Girl. I don't trust her. So it calls for a 1/4 teaspoon. And that just helps it rise, your baking powder. Okay. Put that in there. Mix the dry ingredients first. 3 tablespoons of either shortening, oil. I like to use lard, which is called manteca in Spanish. That calls for 3 tablespoons of lard, okay? Then you have 1 and 1/2 cups of warm or hot water. That's what you use to hydrate the dough. It activates all the ingredients together, it mixes them together, blends them together, melts the shortening in there also, the lard. So I'll put that in right now. So I got the flour, the baking powder, and the salt inside. Now I'm going to put 3 tablespoons. It can be big tablespoons or small. The more you make it, the better you get a feel for how it's going to turn out and how you make it. My mother taught us to make these. She never used any measuring cups or utensils, so we had to figure it out. We would have her do it, then put everything in our hands, and depending on how old we were at the time, that's what made the difference in how much it filled our hands up, you know. So for example, her hands were small, she used a big old gob of lard, right? But in our hands, which were bigger, it was smaller. One of my brothers used to always say, when you make a 5-pound batch, this is a small batch. Batches can be all kinds of different sizes. But if you make a 5-pound batch, put the whole bag of flour, you would go from your finger to your end of your knuckles, like for the amount of shortening that you add. But in this, it's calling for 3 tablespoons. I'll put them in. And then you mix that in. When you mix it in, it kind of gets crumbly like a pie crust. Okay, so you just mix it in. You knead it in there. You see what happens as you mix it in, right? It'll be kind of crumbly as you incorporate it a little bit more into. And the better you mix it in, the better it hydrates when you put the water in. Now, you can use cold water, you can use warm water. Funny, my brother used to boil the water, and you should boil the water because you distill it at the same time, so it's real clean and pure. I like to use RO water. But when you heat it up, of course, it gets rid of the impurities. And then he would always let it cool down to 165. So I would tease him and say, why do you boil it, then let it cool to 165? Why don't you just heat it to 165? I would mess it. Okay, so you see how it resembles, it's kind of crumbly, right? I might call my daughter over here to make sure the camera's right. Her name is Gabriella. I call her Gabby. Gabby, give me a hand. Come over here and make sure the camera sees me well, okay? Because I can't see what's going on. I'm making flour tortillas. I'm actually making these for her. You don't have to be in this video. It's just your dad. But I want to make sure they see me well, okay? Not you, but me. You're not in it. You get a chair so you can see, honey. You can't. You're not tall enough, so you're gonna need a chair.
They see? I see. Yeah.
Can you see me pretty good?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, we're good. Gabby said you see me good. All right, so you mix that in, that lard, manteca, right? Mix it in really good. You see what it does on your hands, right? Because you got that shortening. See how it balls up like that as you mix it together? Okay. That's what you're putting in the flour. You're putting this in the flour. It's going to become similar to a dough, like a pie crust actually, but this is basically unleavened bread. Mexican tortillas. This is kind of a Tex-Mex recipes because my parents were from Texas. Okay. Now when you put the water in, if you're good and you got your recipe down packed, you know, bulletproof, you use the same amount all the time, but everything always changes, right? And depending on your altitude, that'll make a difference as well. So we're going to put that in there. Now, I'm going to get the water. And now this water is hot, okay? My mom would always boil it on the stove. And you can do that. She used a teapot, tea kettle. I boil it on the stove, sometimes put it in the microwave, but I'm already using RO water, reverse osmosis water, and I microwave it so it's hot. Now when you microwave, it's good to use a glass measuring cup, and then you put a wooden spoon in there. That way the glass won't crack. Just an extra tip for you guys out there. Okay, so let me get the water. Now remember, this water's hot. So check it out. You pour it in, it's going to activate. I'm going to leave a little bit, not pour all of it in there. So here's a trick. You're not going to put your hands in boiling water, right? So you go around the perimeter, mix it in. Because I guarantee you, that water's hot. As a boy, I remember my mom always mixing it after she put the hot water in. She'd put a little bit of room temperature water in also. But when she mixed it, she would always go, aye. Because that water's hot, man. Aye. I'm like, Mom, why are you doing that? She never really told me, but when I started making them on my own, I pretty much realized that's why she did that. Okay, so you need a little bit more water. I'm going to put the rest in. That's 1.5 cups of water. So the ingredients are 4 cups all-purpose flour, 1 heavy tablespoon. I like to use kosher salt. A lot of people use Morton iodized salt. That's your choice. It's up to you on how you make it. Okay. A teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Some people don't use baking powder. And then I use 3 tablespoons of lard. So now you see what's happening. These dry ingredients, along with the wet, are becoming hydrated. So it's getting doughy, right? Like cookie dough or tortilla. You know, this is tortilla dough. It can also be called masa. But I believe that they call the flour, the corn tortilla, they call it masa. I've always called this masa also. So another trick, that as you're mixing it, you see how wet it is? The more you knead it, it's going to come together. It won't be as sticky. But you take this dough, right, and you rub it around the sides. That way you don't have anything left on the sides. You get everything. You don't want to waste anything, right? I'm making these for my daughter and I because we love them. They are kind of high in carbs if you're a keto person or you don't want a lot of carbs, but hey, that's life. Just exercise more if you want to eat more carbs. Okay, so you can see it forming. The more I knead it, I'm going to get everything off the bottom. See how sticky and doughy it is, right? But as you begin kneading it more, it's going to come together. It won't be as sticky. Which is weird. You think that if it's sticky, and you mix it together, it's going to be more sticky, right? But it comes together. That hot water melts all the lard in there, brings everything together. Now you can add a little bit more flour if you want. Only add a little bit at a time. Okay, so what most people like to do, a lot of people like to do, they'll put it on a board. Sprinkle the board with a little bit of flour so you get this all out, right? This is what it looks like. when it's still being formed. Okay? Take a little bit of flour. Sprinkle it on the board. And you knead it some more. Hopefully you can see me. Get it in that flour. And it's going to be a little less sticky. But as I said earlier, the more you knead it together, the less doughy it'll become. And if it's too wet, like I said earlier, just add a little bit of flour. Not much, just a tiny bit, because you want this really moist. That's going to make your tortillas really soft, okay? So I'm going to put a little bit more flour in there, just a tiny bit. Sprinkle the board. A little bit of that too. See that? How sticky it is? Now it's becoming less sticky. It's going to absorb all that flour and work it in. Soon it's going to start to come off your hands like it's doing right now as you keep mixing it. So if you ever get any stuck on a board like this, throw a little flour on it. Check it out. It comes right up. See that? My mom used to always also grab a little bit of the masa after it was made, and she used it to clean the board, the cutting board that she rolled on. Okay? We like to use a rolling pin. So, like I said, a little bit of flour. You'll get all of that up. See that? Comes right up. By the way, this video is for you, Steven. Now you can make tortillas. Can't say I didn't do it. I'm going to upload this onto my YouTube channel later on. Hopefully, I have enough memory on my phone. It hasn't ran out of memory yet. I have an iPhone, and a lot of times when you have a lot of pictures and stuff on your phone, you run out of memory. With Apple, it's always saying, hey, you ran out of memory. Want to buy more? I don't like buying anything with my phone. I already paid for it as it is quite a bit for phone service. But, okay, this masa is getting really soft. And we're getting all of the dough, all the masa, off of the board. So now, you feel it. Comes off my hands real easy. See that? You can rub it off like that. Incorporate it back into the ball of dough, the masa, right? The big giant loaf. Comes off real easy. See that? So it's very well hydrated. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to roll it. I'm going to knead it a little bit more. But this is really soft. And I don't know about you guys, but tortilla dough, when you make it, it's like soft as a baby's butt. Funny, but it's so good. Look at that. You see how easy it moves around now? My mom would always just knead it. Some people, like my late beloved brother, he would hit it. And you're just going to smash all of the manteca in there, the lard, I'll show you. And when you cook it, you might even see some little spots of the lard in there. But this is going to make the dough so soft. See that? This is so soft. That's it. That's your dough. That's your masa. That's your ingredients for flour tortillas right there. So what I'm going to do right now, I am going to take a little bit of manteca, lard, right? What's on here? And I'm going to cover the masa, the dough. So what you do, get it wet, right? And you just cover it. That way, as it sits and rests, kind of like what you do with pizza dough or any other dough that rises or, you know, or settles. Oh man, that's good. Let it rest for at least 10 minutes. You can let it rest longer, okay? That's up to you. That's your choice. Let it rest in there. I put it in the oven, or we normally wrap it with a towel. I gotta wash my hands. Wrap this up in a towel, leave it in the oven, right, for 10 minutes. Put the timer on. I'll come back and make another one when I'm done, okay?